Hi folks, welcome to Greg's Workshop. I'm Greg, and today we're going to make a place to mount this vise. So very often when you fix one problem in your shop, you create another. I took out the fixed bench that was right here, which is great because now I have that portable bench and I have the assembly table and I have all that stuff. It's much better than it was. Problem I created is I don't have a place to mount a vise. It used to be mounted, well, a different vise used to be mounted on the corner right about here. Keeping with that theme, what I'm going to do today and what you're going to watch me do is I'm going to build a vise shelf, I guess you could say, a vise bench right here that folds down flat against the wall and then folds up when we want to use it. This is a good spot. It's nice and open. It's right next to the garbage can. We're a little bit space limited here by the air compressor hose through the wall and by the electrical box, but I think we'll be able to get it to a good height. That'll put the top of the vise right about, mid-abdomen. So I think that'll work. Let's get started. So I'm going to start by hanging my ledger. This is a 2x6 that I ripped down to get a nice square edge for the top. I've got a few marks here. I've got holes pre-drilled for my lag screws, so this mark is going to line up with this chalk line from when I hung the siding. That's where the stud is. There's another stud over here at this seam. I've got a mark 4 1/8 of an inch down here. The total thickness of the top is going to be 3 3/4. It's going to be a 2x4 with ½ inch cut off, again, to get that square corner, plus a 3/4 inch top. That'll give me an extra, 3/8 of an inch for swing room underneath this box. I've got these 2 screws started. So what I can do here is I'll get it on the mark. I'll get that center one driven in. Then I can take my level, get it leveled up exactly where it should be, right about there, drive in this other screw. So that'll hold it in place while I drive in the bigger lag screws. So we're using these lags. I got them from Home Depot. I forget the name of them, but they're supposed to replace a 3/8 inch lag, which will be plenty for what we're doing here. I pre-drilled holes through the ledger. I'm not going to pre-drill into the wall because they say you don't need to. So we'll just get them driven home. So I've got all my parts cut. 2x4 frame. 3/4 inch plywood. This is the rest of the old workbench top. So this is the dirty side. It's going to go on the bottom. The clean side will go up. Got 45 degrees here, 22.5 here. The vise will mount right here, so it's sort of sticking out without taking up a whole bunch of space, and it can get around it on 2 sides, which is great. Next step is to take all these, cut a ½ inch off the top there, so that it lays nice and flush here. Then we'll figure out how to get it assembled. I haven't exactly figured that out yet. And the answer to how I'm going to join these together, as it often is, pocket holes. Alright, figured out how I'm going to put it together. Pocket hole screws, glue it and screw it in there. I'm going to start at this corner, kind of use that as my baseline. We'll put in this piece, then we'll put in that piece. Then for the pointy bit, the end of the bench where the vise will actually mount, I'm just going to do some real final trimming on that. I'm not exactly sure how I'm going to tie all that together, but I'll get it figured out. So we'll get this first piece put in and get going. You know what? Actually, it's probably a good time for a time lapse. Before we get to mounting it, I want to take care of this really sharp corner. This is the part that's going to be sticking out. The vise is going to be right here. I want to soften that up a little bit. I got this corner jig from Craig, 2-inch radius. That's the biggest one that comes in the kit. So I'm going to cut one slot, and then I'm going to remove that, use the part I cut for the guide for the next level, then flip it over, do the same thing on the bottom. I should have like a 1/2 inch in the middle that I'll just have to take care of with like a saw and a sander. But we'll get this rounded off so it's not quite so abrupt. All right, about 10 minutes, 40 grit on the sides, followed by 120 on the sides and the top. Nice and smooth. And I kind of book matched these, so I think it looks pretty good right there, other than that little tiny tooth gap there. That's all right. Nobody will see that. Next step, let's put the hinges on back here. The last piece I need to build is the leg to support it. So there's a few different ways I could do that. I could laminate a couple of these together and make a 4x4. I could buy a 4x4. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make kind of an L leg out of this piece of 2x that I ripped. Got a pocket hole, got a doweling jig for Christmas. Haven't used it yet. There's a few different ways we could do this. Could put in pocket holes back here, put in screws through here, just glue it up and clamp it. I'm going to use the doweling jig. I've never used it before. My understanding is that it's important to have the reference edge, the same. So I've got my reference edge marked here and back here. Got the spacing set. I've got all the marks transferred. So I'll just get some holes drilled and get it glued and clamped together. I'm still kind of learning how to use that doweling jig. It's Milescraft, so it's a little bit cheap and it's not super great, but I mean, it drills straight holes, and the more I use it, the more I like it. I might get a better one later on, but for now, well, as you can see, works just fine. Glue up is done. Got my nice little L-shaped leg here. And if you can kind of see, it's not quite square, so we're going to true it up on the joiner here. Going to smooth up this side first, then we'll use the fence to make this side square. I don't know if you can see it in the camera or not. It's a little bit, and you get a wider piece of 2x material. One edge is maybe a little wider, so this is, I don't know, like a 1/16 wider here than it is here. So we'll get that taken care of and get it looking good. Got all the edges smooth, got everything nice and square, true. I even did these edges. Next is to round over all these corners so they're not quite so sharp. All right, now the leg's done. It's time to cut it to length. So I got this temporary clamped here. We're sitting level, just slightly above level. I'm going to measure straight down as best I can to the bottom of the plywood because that's where the leg is going to sit. Looks like 34 and a half. So we'll cut that to 34.5, check for fit. Get it wedged in there. All right. That actually looks pretty good. Slightly proud, but I think it'll probably fall a little bit as we go. Go in, stand to go in just a touch. But not by much. It's looking pretty good. Alright. Well, let me show you how I'm going to secure this. So I put these T-nuts in on the back, 1/2-inch hole, 3/8 T-nuts. It gives me just a little bit of extra room in here in case I need it to get the holes lined up properly. Got to lift a little, get that in straight. Holes look like they line up all right. For right now, I'm just going to be using bolts. I intend, probably later today if I can swing it, to make some sort of knobs with a threaded end on it. They make them up to 2 inches long. The problem is I need at least 3, maybe 3.5 to make it work. But for now, that'll do it. I'm going to tighten them down pretty tight the first time just to get those T-nuts properly set. Back in the leg. Beautiful. Check for level once more. Yep, just slightly high, but that's okay. As I mount the vise and pound on it and everything, I think that'll settle out. And now for the vise itself. This is a Harbor Freight swivel vise. It swivels this way and then it turns this way as well. I had it pretty well figured out where I wanted it. Of course, I sanded most of those marks off. That's looking just about right there. So I'm going to attach it with a bolt back here, and then leg bolts in here. We'll start with that back one. So for this one in the back, I have a 1/2-inch bolt. I have a 12mm washer. The reason I went metric is because the flange isn't very wide. It isn't wide enough for a standard washer, so that gives just a little bit more surface area, but not a whole bunch. On the bottom side, however, I have a nice big steel washer as well as a flange nut. Get it tightened down. Good, it's a good start. Then we'll see about the leg bolts. So these are kind of interesting leg bolts. I don't know that I've seen this before. They're 1/2-inch, but the actual shank is only slightly larger than the center of the threaded part, which means I think I can only need to really drill the one hole. It has this little cone at the top that'll get it nice and centered when it gets in there. But for now, I'll just drill that hole. One more thing to try before we call this project done. And try folding it down. Just because of the clearances that I know I have down there, I think to fold it, I'm going to need to swing the vise sideways, like so. That way we don't hit the floor when it goes down. Put this down so you can see. Lift up slightly, pull out the leg, lower the whole thing down. Oh, it's beautiful. I might not actually have to swing that vise. Nope. Oh well. First time using the new vise. Works just fine. So these bolts work well enough, but I don't really want to use a tool to put the leg on, take it down. So that all thread you saw me cutting right here, threaded it into this knob, got a jam nut on there, gonna throw a washer on, and just be able to tighten it up by hand. And loosen it by hand when the time comes. Yeah, that's a lot better. And that brings us to the end of this video. What do you think? Good idea? Bad idea? Too unstable? Too temporary? I don't know. Leave a comment down below. Let me know what you think. Folks, if you enjoyed that video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel. Ring the bell to get notified of new videos every other Saturday, give or take. As I said, leave a comment or question down below, and I'll see you next time on Greg's Workshop.